Minecraft has a lot of different blocks, all with unique textures, but did you know that some of these blocks completely change if you just look at them a little differently? Today I'll be showing you Minecraft's hidden textures and how to build with them. We'll start with the villager workstation blocks. A lot of these have a fantastic underside texture that's similar to the block itself in color, but the pattern is totally unique. Take the smithing table for example. The bottom texture for this block is a very cool dark oak wood and can make for a really interesting ceiling design when paired nicely with stripped logs for example. The composter and loom are another two great for ceilings, as like the smithing table, they cannot be flipped upside down, unlike the barrel, which is one of my favourite blocks in the game. Now the barrel does in fact have a great underside texture, however depending on where you look to place it, the rotation will change, meaning you can use the bottom texture as a floor design too. I love to use this in my base or storage room as the barrels themselves can still be accessed. Not only does it have the bottom texture, but the sides look great too, whether you use them for a wall design or even pillars for your build. There are other workstation blocks with great side textures too, such as the already mentioned loom and composter. The loom, by the way, kinda looks like a set of drawers, which is exactly why I added these little handles onto my custom resource pack. The smoker has a pretty interesting side texture, and so does the blast furnace, along with a top texture that makes for a really cool and expensive industrial floor design. Lastly, the stone cutter has an interesting smooth stone-like texture that can be fun to use. So that's all of the workstation blocks that I think are noteworthy. However, we've still got plenty more to talk about. But if you are enjoying the video so far, a like rating would be very much appreciated, and be sure to subscribe if you're new. Only if you want to though, of course. Thank you. We have lots of other cool blocks with more side and bottom textures, but before we get onto them, I want to talk about blocks that totally change once you alter them just slightly, such as mushroom blocks. Did you know if you place a mushroom block next to another one and then get rid of one of them, you get this totally new mushroom block that's almost as though the top layer has been peeled off. I absolutely love to use this as a unique floor design. Next up we have glow lichen and skulk veins. Now these blocks themselves don't exactly have any hidden textures, but they do completely change the look of another block by placing it on top of it. For example, on my minecart station I used a mix of stone, andesite, and then the same again but with glow lichen on it. So it's almost as though I'm using 4 completely different blocks. Of course this works for any block in the game, so maybe just experiment with what you like the look of. This one might not be very functional, but this cool wood texture is actually the back of a painting. It could be tricky to place down, but as long as you've got some signs, it could work pretty well for an interesting highlight. I think now we'll move on to the rest of the blocks with a different side or bottom texture. The furnace placed backwards can make for a nice wall liner, so does the dropper or dispenser, but the furnace is cheaper to make so you'll probably want to use that. It also works pretty well for an industrial floor, a bit cheaper to craft than the blast furnace from earlier. Just a few redstone components to touch on now. The observer has many usable sides, whether it's the face in the front, the single dot in the back, the arrow on top, or just the cool looking side textures. Pistons can also work well in a wall as a side texture, or even just the top as a wooden floor. The final redstone block is the daylight detector. Although expensive to craft, the underside texture is pretty cool, I must say. Here's one of the more hard to come by blocks of the video, a bee nest. I really love the side texture of this one, and it can make for a great transition between jungle planks and gold blocks. A bit of a weird one, I know. I first discovered this when watching Etho's Hermitcraft Season 7 series, and I think it's just perfect. Another bee related block that I love to use is the beehive. If you have a honey farm, these are super cheap to craft and it gives you so many uses. The top block is essentially just a lovely wooden texture that's great for floors, and the side texture also works really well when paired with any other type of wood blocks. Similar to the beehive is the new chiseled bookshelf that we'll be getting our hands on in the 1.20 update. Once again, it's just a great wood texture that's a little bit different to the planks or logs. Only 3 more to go now, starting with the azalea bush, which doesn't exactly have a hidden texture per se, but I did notice whilst researching for this video that it pairs really nicely with moss blocks. Probably not surprising, but I've never really thought about it before. So if you have a mossy garden floor, maybe mix in some azalea bushes. Next up, we have shulker boxes. If you perhaps want to use these as permanent storage in your base, why not place them in the floor, upside down, similar to how we placed the barrels in earlier. They have this awesome spiral texture which I think is just really unique. Last but not least, we have the crafting table, and if you didn't know, this block actually has an oak wooden bottom, meaning if you have an oak ceiling, you can seamlessly place it alongside the other blocks and not even be able to tell it's there. I think it's a fun little trick if you want to hide your crafting bench and possibly confuse any of your visitors that come by. So there we go, that was all of the hidden textures I could find that are actually useful for building. Let me know down in the comments if I missed any, but thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.